Hello, this is Jada. This is going to be video diary number 7. This time I will talk about how it was having Crohn's disease and being in elementary school, middle school, and high school. Joy. Alright, so I was diagnosed 1995. And I was 9 years old. I was in 4th grade, going on 10. And I don't really remember, how it was really in 4th grade. I knew my stomach hurt a lot. I knew my parents had to talk to my teachers. And I was allowed to, for end of grade testing, if I needed to use the bathroom, they would allow me to go and use it. And, if I needed extra time, they would do that. So I definitely remember being able to, have those arrangements made. I remember I had a friend in 5th grade. And, she was probably the only one I told about, my condition. And I tried to pretty much explain it to her that, my stomach hurt a lot. And that was probably the first friend I ever had that I told, what was going on. And she was okay with it. If my stomach started hurting in school or in line, she would see me rubbing my stomach, and somebody may have asked her, why is she doing that? And, she would really, take up for me. She would speak up for me and say, that's just what she does when her stomach hurts. So that's one thing that I remember about elementary school. When it came to middle school, being that we ended up switching schools and moving, so I was pretty much starting an entire, we moved to Garner, and I started a brand new middle school. Didn't know anybody. It was just me and my brother. So, of course, can we say high anxiety? I, as a kid, was one of those, I didn't talk to you unless you spoke to me. I did not make friends very easily. I was extremely shy. I was one of those, I would sit quietly in class and you probably didn't even know I existed unless the teacher called on me. I always made good grades because I was really smart. So if anybody knew me, they'd probably either wanted me in their group because they knew I was smart, or that I gave out a bunch of pencils. So yeah, I wasn't popular. I didn't really want to be either. So when it came to the middle school years, those definitely were really, really challenging. Because I didn't know how to make friends at all. I rarely would even talk to people. Definitely know, in 6th grade, I did not tell anybody what was going on. And I don't even know if they really knew, what in the world was going on with me. I don't think they really cared, but, I think the major thing that happened to me in 6th grade was that I had shingles, and most elderly people get shingles. If you've ever had chicken pox, then you already have the shingles virus in you. But most of the time you see shingles in elderly people, but I ended up getting shingles in 6th grade, and I know I had to be out for 2 weeks. That was probably the first time I had to see my doctor outside of the hospital in my mom's car because I was contagious and I could not go into the doctor's office. He literally came outside and saw me in the parking lot. So shingles hurt. Chickenpox makes you itch. Shingles is 1,000 little pins that are, how chickenpox you can just get it all over. Shingles is little clumps of bumps that are strategically in certain places. I had it from the middle of my chest going all the way around here, and that's where it was. and they were a hot little cluster of bumps, and it was just like continuous little pins just poking you, and it was sharp. It was a really, really sharp pain. I mean, that mess was just so freaking uncomfortable, like, oh my gosh. So that was like the major thing that happened to me in 6th grade. You know, I was in the hospital for maybe a week or two, but it really wasn't until 7th grade that you know, things kind of started to really progress. I know I stated in one of my first videos that I was actually in the hospital for half the school year, and that was when I was in 7th grade. That's when I got my first abscess. And that was like, as soon as I got that first one, oh buddy, they kept coming. And I had my very first surgery at that time because it was really huge and it was on my butt cheek. And I had to get it, like, they literally cut probably about a 1/4 around hole and about 1 inch deep into my cheek to drain it and get it out. And that was the first time I went through surgery, and I had to get it packed every day. And when I say that was like the most excruciating pain I had ever felt in my entire life, was I used to have to go to whirlpool therapy to try to help the wound heal because it was so deep. But the very first time I went there, you know, the packing had kind of dried up. The worst thing ever that a doctor or nurse can do is pull dry dressing out of a fresh wound. That is human torture, especially for a 12-year-old. So, I just need to give that note to anyone who is watching this that is a nurse or a doctor or thinking about it. Don't do that. At least allow them to put saline solution or something on that. But to take it out, oh my God. I probably almost fainted because it hurt so freaking bad. But yeah, they took it out and I ended up getting in the whirlpool. And then I had to be repacked. And, you know, she was nice enough to give me a mirror so I can see. You know, I hadn't even seen what the wound looked like. And I actually did cry because I said I could not believe I had this big gaping hole, like, in my butt cheek. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, why is this thing? I'm literally looking at a hole in, like, a man-made hole. And I was just like, oh my God. So, you know, I stayed in the hospital for a little bit on that occasion, and I can't remember if I went back. I did. I think I got better, but I ended up having another flare, and it was when I had that other flare is when I ended up having to stay like for a couple of months. I don't know if it was like 2 or 3 months. I know it was like around the springtime, but they ended up putting a central line. That's what it was, a central line, and I still actually have the scar today. I don't know if you can kind of see it. I'll try to zoom in, but my fingers are kind of in the way. But that's the scar from my central line right here. I don't know if you guys can see it. But I ended up having to have that put in because, you know, I was in there for so long, and they kept having to give me new IVs, and unfortunately my veins weren't that great. So instead of them continuing to try to fish around for IVs, I went ahead and had to get a central line put in, and that was like my next surgery, and that hurt also because, I mean, I really literally they put a hole in my chest. And I had that for a good little while. I went home with the central line in. That's when I got started on I guess they call it TPN, where I had to get these bags of nutrients. I had to get hooked up to it. I had like a small little machine. And I still actually have that machine. I kept it. with a little battery to it. I had to get it programmed, and every day at probably like around 5 or so, I would get hooked up to my machine. They taught me how to, flush the line out. Every other Monday, I would have to take my own blood and have it packaged off. So that was a really, really, really big change for me, was to, have to, while most people or most kids my age were just relaxing, maybe hanging out with their friends, maybe just watching TV, I was getting hooked up to a central line to be fed that evening with a little backpack. Now I will say, because I was a kid, I probably wasn't that great at taking care of it. I'm actually really surprised that I didn't yank the thing out, because I just get up and kind of forget that I got the thing on, and I think that I pulled that thing, I don't know how many times. I tripped over it, I stepped on it, I got it caught in the door, my cat kept playing with it, yeah, you name it, all that stuff. So thankfully I didn't end up yanking it out. Oh, but I had some really hard yanks to where I was like, oh my god, I forgot this thing was in my chest. So it was a little annoying, because at the time, I was wearing bras, and it was really hard to try to hide it, because the wire, not really wires, but the little ports, I had tape up here on my chest, and I would, try to wear shirts where that, people couldn't see that, okay, my chest was taped up. So that was probably the most annoying thing about it. But I believe I finally, came back to school, probably like a month before school ended. I had to end up going to hospital school because I was in there for so long. I ended up seeing a therapist, which I know she probably didn't like coming to see me, because I didn't like coming to see her. I would most likely, I usually hid from her, and I was pretty good at hiding because I was really small, so I could, hide from her, like in the bed, make my bed look really messy and hide underneath the covers and stuff, so I didn't have to go talk to her. But unfortunately, my nurses would rat me out, and of course I'd have to end up going to talk to her. But they had some, they had like a little kid room, game room, but one of the things that I did find to pass the time, I used to make these decorated pillowcases, and it was a nurse who showed me how to do it, and I've always been a pretty good drawer. And what she did is she helped me to get some coloring pages, and she snuck some pillow sheets and stuff like that from out the little bedding area. And they had fabric paint. And what I would do is, for like the smaller kids, the younger kids, like the toddlers and such, that were in the hospital, I would make them little personalized pillowcases. I'd ask their parents, which one do you think they would like and what their name was. And I would concentrate on doing that. And that was one of the things that I really, really started liking to do, was making their pillowcases for them. I'd trace it. And then after tracing it with the fabric paint, I'd end up coloring it in and putting their name on it. And once it dried, they had a nice little masterpiece for them. So, that was one of the things that, definitely, helped get me through those elementary and middle school years of being in the hospital. Now, I was thankful enough that I was able to leave the hospital before the end of the school year. However, I ended up going back in the hospital that summer because I was turning 13. And I actually spent my 13th birthday in the hospital that year, because I was supposed to have like a nice, I think I was supposed to have a sleepover or a party. I know I was supposed to have a birthday party, and it had to be canceled because I was in the hospital. And I ended up staying in there. I begged my doctors to let me go to the first day of school. And I said, I promise I'll be back. I won't run away. And, you know, after begging and pleading, you know, they did agree to let me go to the first day of 8th grade because I was still in the hospital. I was in there for just that long. I was in there for my birthday. I was in there for August. And they let me. My mom came up there first thing that morning and got me dressed for school. And they unhooked me from everything and gave me all my medications that I needed. And, you know, I went to the first day of 8th grade. And unfortunately, I had to go back. So, I didn't return back to school till about a month later. And everybody was like, where have you been? And I said, I was in the hospital. He's like, well, how did you get to go to the first day? I said, well, they let me come out so I could go to the first day of school. So, you know, that I would say I didn't really tell a lot of people what I had. I had 2 friends in 7th grade that I really did, you know, open up to them about, you know, my medical condition, and I let them know, you know, what I was going through. And they were, you know, they were nice enough. They had came to visit me in the hospital. So, you know, I kept my friends close, and I didn't want a lot of friends. You know, the 2 that I had were okay, and one of them, you know, we're still friends to this day. So, you know, it definitely, you know, I definitely was a little skeptical of who I could trust regarding it, because let's be honest, Crohn's disease, you know, it will give you diarrhea, or you be throwing up a lot. And kids, the D word, diarrhea, is fun, like, ew, oh my gosh, like, they're nasty. And so, you know, it's a little embarrassing to try to tell somebody that, well, I kind of have chronic diarrhea. I mean, how else am I supposed to say it? So, you know, the elementary and middle school years were definitely a challenge for me. Just, you know, as a kid, trying to be comfortable with who I was. So, I will see you guys in video number 8.